If you're one of those people who thinks that I am a smug, self-important pseudo-intellectual, you can share this video and say, see, I was right. I know I said the less said about the prequels, the better, but somebody on my subreddit asked how I would do these new movies, and I'm not sure that I'm that kind of writer, but you know who is? You know who is the #1 guy I think could helm a Star Wars trilogy, especially could have helmed this one we're getting right now, and knocked it out of the park better than anybody working today? Guillermo del Toro. Pan's Labyrinth and The Shape of Water demonstrate beyond a doubt that this dude understands myth and fairy tales in his bones, which is what you need. That being said, I think I could have done the prequel trilogy. I didn't cover this in the video because I felt like it was sort of a tangent, but I was, for a while, a Phantom Menace apologist. I came out of that movie preaching to everyone that there was a lot more going on in there than folks gave the movie credit for. I described how medieval theologists made a distinction between fate and destiny. Destiny is God's plan for you. You may not like it, it may be difficult, in fact it always is difficult, that's the point, but it is how you get into heaven. Meaning, this is how you live an authentic life. This is how you get to the end and think, it was hard, but I did the right thing. That's your happy ending. Fate is what happens to you when you go against God's plan. It means you end up at the end thinking, it was all for nothing. I screwed up. I'm a terrible person. I wish... That's hell. It means a miserable ending. The Jedi we meet in The Phantom Menace are in the wasteland. They live inauthentic lives. How can we tell? Qui-Gon meets Anakin and decides to dice with Watto for the boy's life. This is important. It is the defining moment of Anakin's life and the entire series. Why? What does dicing for the boy's life mean? First of all, there's no such thing as random chance in myth. When you roll the bones, when you cast the entrails, you're saying, I surrender my conscious mind in order to let greater powers guide me. I'm going to create some space to let something else in. Nature, often, or God. So Qui-Gon is saying, let the gods decide. This should not be a matter between us mortals. Let fate decide. All well and good. Then what does he do? He uses his power to interfere with destiny. He doesn't just trick Watto. He doesn't hand him a set of loaded dice. He uses his powers, the powers God granted him to do good with, and he interferes with destiny. He interferes with God's plan. In that moment, he twists Anakin and sends him down another path. He dooms the boy, and so dooms the land. Why does he do that? Because the rest of the Jedi are leading false lives. They are doing what they were told, thoughtlessly, obeying the old ways, lacking all vitality. This is why they were completely unaware of the presence of the Sith in their midst. Qui-Gon believes in the uttermost rightness of the Jedi. Whatever we do must be the right thing because we're the ones doing it, and therefore it is right and proper that I use my powers to interfere with this boy's future. We see this in the final battle between the Jedi and Darth Maul. What does Qui-Gon do? He fights like a Jedi. He does not experience emotion. He doesn't get angry. When the magnetic barriers come up, he sits and meditates. Like a good student, he does what he was taught. And what does that get him? He dies horribly, his life wasted, maybe knowing in that moment that he was wrong, which is the proper end for someone who has gone against God's will. What does Obi-Wan do? He gets angry. He fights with fury, with emotion. He is being authentic. He is living life. Qui-Gon was just existing. What does Obi-Wan do when the magnetic shields come up? He paces like a lion, like a tiger. No plan, no awareness of his teachers or what the Jedi Order thinks is best. And he wins. When Parzival meets the sickly Grail King, his first instinct is to ask, what ails you, old man? His first instinct is compassion. But he remembers his teachings. A knight does not ask questions. A knight obeys. And so he says nothing, and so damns the land. In that act, he creates the wasteland because he lived his life for others. He followed duty instead of passion. You don't have to marry the person your parents picked for you or your feudal lord selected for you, the marriage that brings the greatest benefit to the two tribes. You should marry for love. Follow your heart. The lesson of the Grail in Wolfram von Eschenbach's subversive Parzival is that your only duty is to God, not society, not your parents, not your lord. Your only duty is to be the best version of you can be. And God says, if you do that, everything else will work itself out for the best. Live your life for others, and you doom yourself. That's what the prequels are about. It's about the descent into the wasteland. It's about the knights living life inauthentically, and that creates Darth Vader. Of course it does, because what changes it? When is the moment when everything turns around? It's when Yoda tells Luke to stay and finish his training. Obey. Follow your duty. A knight does not ask questions. But what does Luke do? He moves from his center, his dharma, his essential nature. He disobeys, and though it is painful, though it costs him his hand, because all knowledge comes with a price, it also costs him his innocence, which he had to jettison if he was going to save the land. In the swamp, he lives in Eden, no awareness of the world of opposites. Male, female, life, death, right, wrong. Once he leaves, he eats from the tree of knowledge and learns the one essential truth that informs everything that happens after. He learns who his father is. If he had obeyed Master Yoda, he would never have learned the truth. We know the Jedi were never going to tell him who his father was. And so the wasteland would continue. Only having eaten from the tree of knowledge and learned the truth can Luke save his father. He couldn't save Darth Vader. He had no awareness there was anyone to save. But he could save his father. And in doing so, save himself and save the world. That's the point of The Phantom Menace. That's what it's all about. Is what I said. But it turns out, I imagined all that. That's not the point of the movie. The movie is a train wreck, and I stared at the ink blots long enough until I saw a butterfly. I think eventually Disney, or whoever buys them, Apple, will remake the original movies. But I'd really like to see a remake of the prequels that's closer to the films we were all looking forward to. My friend Phil asked on Facebook, by what criteria do we judge these movies? I didn't think about it, I just said the first thing that popped in my head. I think I judge these movies by their mythic character. That's what I find lacking in the recent films and what I'd like to see restored. I think these videos happen because I'm on Christmas break, and so I've indulged myself a little more than I normally would. Please do not judge me too harshly. Art and culture are important. It should be no surprise that we take this stuff seriously. Anyway, back to D&D. Next video, we are definitely going to talk about backgrounds. Until then, peace out.